Hey everyone, this is Mayan Gordon, owner of Mayan Gordon Media, co-founder of Champion Empire, and we've got such a special guest today. I know I'm excited. I know you guys watching are excited. We've got Jonathan Palmar here, and we're going to be getting into a great conversation. But first, you guys know what to do. Post in the comments what's one thing, you can post more than one thing, but at least one thing that you're grateful for today. Let's get the comment section filled with some positivity. And you guys, bring your questions. If you have any questions about content marketing, about creating videos, about the creative process, Jonathan is just like a plethora of information. He's a Pandora's box of information. So, Jonathan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to people? Like, who are you as a person? How would you describe yourself, your entity and your being?
So, super interesting story. I've been on LinkedIn since January. I was originally in my early 20s. I was a WWE professional wrestler. And,
no way.
Yeah.
This already got so exciting. No way. That's awesome.
Yeah,
My
like,
husband's
like
pretty
the hair,
into
like the muscles
WWE.
and all
Oh,
that.
you've totally got it. Yeah. What was your name?
Right. So, well, my name was Torch Boy. You can actually go into like YouTube, search Y2J Chris Jericho in 2007. It'll come right up. You'll see me. I was like 18 years old, but
that's awesome.
Yeah. Either way, so started as a professional wrestler. Realized that I had two left feet. I was not very athletic, so that was a short career. I didn't know what to do. So luckily, my dad had a forensic accounting firm, so I kind of like gave up on my dreams. Became a forensic accountant, and from there, around like October, November, my dad said he wanted to rebrand his company. And a couple of his friends, executive friends, had mentioned the fact that LinkedIn was a great place to post press releases and articles relating to their industry. And I was like, I don't know. I see a lot of people doing video, and I was very intrigued by it. And then what happened from there is I saw Shay Robot doing a lot of video content. So instead of reaching out to her on LinkedIn, which is what most people would do, I found her on Instagram, and I sent her a message over there. And I said, hey, listen, I know you're probably way too busy, but I would love to do this video thing. And from there, she reached back out to me, and I was able to work with her. I joined her boot camp. From there, the rest is history. Now I'm a part of the company. So yeah,
that's amazing. That's almost like it's like a dream story right there of what you hear everyone saying can work, and it's worked out kind of perfectly for you. That's awesome. So kind of take us back. Tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up for you. Like, where did you grow up? And I guess, where are you located right now? And what was your family life like? You don't have to go into too much detail, but are you an only child? Do you have brothers and sisters? What was that all like?
Right. So I have two brothers, two younger brothers. I've lived in Miami, Florida my entire life, which is kind of peculiar. Most people come to Miami, whether it's to vacation or, to retire. But I was born here, lived here my entire life. So, from Miami. And my family just like super, super conservative, very like 1950s. Dad went to work, mom stayed at home, almost like an American dream immigrant type of story. But what happened is that, in middle school and high school, I was just like the quietest, most insecure kid. I was bullied a lot. And what was interesting is, like, as a kid, I saw these professional wrestlers, these WWE wrestlers, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Hulk Hogan. These guys, they had so much charisma, they had this ability to talk on the microphone and kind of like, and to fight each other. And I would always gravitated towards that. I always wanted to, because I was bullied so much, I wanted to find like my own outlet. So that's kind of what started that journey. But it's so funny how all of those little elements have played into what I do today.
Tell me more about that. What do you mean? Give us the details.
Yeah, so basically, like, I treat the way that I do my video content today like I would being on television, performing as a wrestler. You bring that same intensity and that charisma, the passion. It's not all that different from what you would see on one of those programs. So I think that helps me stand out. That helps me, give you a little bit of edge, because as you on LinkedIn are developing content, you have to find your own unique voice. Copying other people or following the trends is only going to get you so far. But if you really want to stand out, if you want to brand yourself, you got to have some of those characteristics that make you stand out from everybody else.
Yeah, no, I think that's such a great point. It's not always about just having the most numbers. It really is about that uniqueness. And you can
Yeah,
have a far smaller following than some of the giant people you see with hundreds of thousands of followers, and actually make a bigger impact because you're so memorable. And I've seen that just from as an example for everyone watching. When I posted just even a couple hours ago the little graphic that I have that you're going to be on the LinkedIn Live today. I had at least 5 people reach out to me and say how excited they were that you were going to be on the show because
that's
they
cool.
love your videos. They love your charisma and I would call it your energy, right? You bring a lot of energy to your videos and what you're doing. So tell us a little bit. It seems like you're super natural at this, but how long did it really take you to develop from being kind of a shy person to this like outgoing, charismatic person? And was that a difficult journey for you, or was it something that you just kind of dove right into and found your way with?
No, it was very much. It took many years, and it took a lot of, it was just a lot of, like, we all develop a chip on our shoulders. Now, how deep the chip is different for each person. For me, I had a very dominant father, the very strong father, like big guy, and I think like just his energy, having all those people around me, like it just made me realize that if I want to survive or if I want to stand out, then I really have to develop my own voice. So it was a process. Like it took many years. It took a lot of rejection from people, from opportunities, from all of those things, to the point where, it almost became like, even though I'm like a really positive, happy guy, like it's like a lot of this is just anger. It's just my way.
Yeah,
of
I love that. No, that's great. Kill them with kindness is a real, like,
yeah.
you really do want to murder them with some kindness. It's absolutely, I can totally relate to that. I think from my growing up circumstances, my mom was kind of almost the opposite, where she kind of made me feel more special than I felt, or like treated me like I was more special than I felt internally. And so I developed I would say like a sense of sarcasm from a pretty early age that was too strong. And I had to learn how to tone it back and kind of unlock the side of me that people really connected with through a more soft spoken style than my mother. So almost, would you say that you're a similar style to your father, or kind of like an opposite style?
Oh no, like my dad's on LinkedIn, which is so funny. I'm like a complete opposite. He's very clean cut. Like I think we have like similar levels of intensity, but very contrasting in terms of style. And I remember when I was starting out on LinkedIn, this is the real life story of what happened. So I was developing content for his company page, and then my ideas started getting a little bit too wild for a forensic accountant. And then he said, "Listen, John, you can't post that stuff on our page anymore, our company page. You're scaring people. Like, go post it on your own page. Go make your own LinkedIn." And then that's where I exploded. I was like, all right, now it's like, basically it's like a blank canvas, and I can create whatever I want with it. And like you are an artist, so you understand the type of freedom that comes with that. And, even more than like the fandom or getting more followers or everything, this is just like yourself. This is like an art form. The way that we post is art. That's how I view it. It's a form of expression over money, over anything else. And that's how I treat it. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's such a great point. There's a huge, I think, level of happiness that comes with self-expression, not just in the self-expression of who you already see yourself as, but in the self-expression of who you think you might be, and kind of testing out areas where you're really uncertain if that type of content or that type of personality you want to exhibit is going to do well, but you do have that freedom to try it out. And if it doesn't work out, it's not a big deal. You keep creating new content and moving on. And honestly, LinkedIn does a terrible job of showing you anyone's posts that are older than, a little bit. So like no one's going to see it anyways after it doesn't do well, especially if I think that's the beauty of the algorithms these days, is if the content's not that good or people don't like it that much, the platform just doesn't show it to that many people. So
I'm going to reveal a little secret though.
Yes.
This is a little secret. I don't really talk about it. Yes. My biggest fear is that. My biggest fear is I'm going to have that post that absolutely bombs. It's just completely tone deaf. And because, it may be similar in your case, where when we're content creators, this is how we make our living. we constantly have that pressure of developing great content so we can continue to generate leads towards our businesses. And we really count on this creativity. The thing is that it's a well that doesn't keep giving every day. It's like some days it's a little more dry than others, right? So like that's my biggest fear, that I'm going to have that stinker. And even though most people won't notice it, like, be honest, because the truth is, people like us, we live kind of like in a fishbowl. Because we have a lot of followers, a lot of people are watching what we're doing, and I don't think that we always recognize that. But there's a lot of people watching.
No, that's very true. I would say, like, for me, I'm much more hyper aware of it now, but only because I made some tone deaf posts. This was back when I was really on Instagram, and there were some things I tried out, and people got so upset, like literally like thousands of messages of people being like, "We hate you, you're terrible." Like, because people on social media, you make one mistake and they think you're the worst person in the world forever. So I've definitely had that share of experiences. There's a couple things I've learned through that. One is that with that negative attention comes a lot of positive attention, because a lot of people are not going to kind of judge you based off one post, and they will look at kind of the bulk of your content and make their own decision, because a lot of people don't like being told what to think. Those are my kind of people. But then there's kind of the rest of the crowd who just wants to be a part of the mob, of the hate mob, and they're not going to care at all. They're just like, yeah, burn them, like total, Beauty and the Beast style there.
I love that. It's so true. It's so true.
Awesome. I want to give a couple shout outs to people watching right now. Sam, thank you so much. Kelvin, how's it going? Zeta, Brian, so good to see you. And Doug, you guys are amazing. Again, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Well, I've got a question. Kind of walk us through, it's not a question, I guess, statement. Walk us through your creative process. What does that look like for you?
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And I feel like that's one of my strengths. And again, like, this is all about bringing value. I recognize that most people are not going to take the time to develop like very thorough. And I noticed it very early on, like most people, developing content is checking a box. It's like, okay, I need to do my marketing for the day. Let me make a post about this or that. Let me scroll through the feed, see what's relevant for today, and just make something. Where my process is very intentional. Like, I have such a respect for people's time. Like, anytime that you're developing a post, you're asking people to give you 2 minutes of their life that they're not going to get back. I need to ensure that those 2 minutes are well worth the time that you gave me. So, and then especially if you're looking at like your audience is like 15, 20, 30,000 people, I need to ensure that it's enough value for every single one of those people. It works the same with the comments. One thing that I do is when I post a video, I will hang out in the comment section for 2 to 3 hours after the post. And it's very intentional. The reason I do that is because I want to show appreciation for everybody that leaves a comment, but also that kind of helps, obviously it bumps the algorithm, that's all great, but answer people's questions. And that helps me develop content for the future. So, my Q&As are kind of like my bread and butter right now. Like, I do Q&A sessions, and that kind of like drives everything else. So I think it's super important. Like, that's really my process. It's taking, I will take 4 hours to develop a script, and then I film it. That's another 2 hours. And not 2 hours, it's another hour. It's like an hour to film, and then I cut it down to 2 minutes. And then editing can be 4 to 5 hours of a video. And I only post twice a week, right? Yep. So it can be
But those twice a week posts do very well. I mean, your posts consistently do, 15 to 30,000 views with hundreds of comments. And so I think that's a really great example of, there's kind of two perceived methods for content creation. One is high value, less frequency. And the other is like high frequency. I'm not going to say less value. Let's say less quality. Because honestly, that's typically what it is. And I can say I'm definitely in the second category. I do more volume, but I don't put as long into my posts. And that's why, honestly, my posts don't get 15. Like, if I got a 15,000 view post, I'd be so stoked. And I do on occasion, because certain times, like, the quality is there. But it's really different methods. And one is not necessarily better than the other. It's really about figuring out what works for you. But if you're watching this right now and you're thinking, man, how does he get all these views and all these comments, it's because he's putting in more work than you. He's putting in more time than you, and it does absolutely matter. Now, that's not to say if you put in 8 hours, you're going to be guaranteed to get the numbers that Jonathan's getting. That's not true at all. Jonathan's got tons of talent. He's got years and years of developing his personality and his content creation and his ideas and execution. So of course there's skill, there's experience, and there's talent, and all those things really do matter. What would you say out of those 3 things I just named, experience, talent, and I forget what the third one was. What kind of matters the most to you, or do you think is lending the most to your success, or do you think it's an even balance?
The effort. Definitely the effort. Because one thing that I will say about Shay, like, again, she's my boss, so I don't want to come off like, but it's legitimate. Shay could be in the same spot that I'm in right now, and she can deliver the greatest message, and she didn't plan it ahead at all. It's just like, it's the way her brain works. It's just like LeBron could make free throws all day and constantly land them. It's unbelievable levels of talent. For me, I have to be very intentional with what I'm going to do. I have to do a ton of research. I have to try and figure out, like, okay, what do people want to hear right now? And that takes a lot of effort. So, it depends on where you're sitting. But for me, it's absolutely the hours of work. I looked at LinkedIn, I studied it, and I realized that people weren't putting in a ton of time into each post. They're more of like the Gary Vee centric, document, don't create. Put out as much content as you possibly can. And I mean, this goes for anything else. Like both of us are very good at. What are you doing to stand out? And it really works even on the micro level. I'm standing out by posting only twice a week, but making it very intentional because I see everybody else listening to Gary Vee and posting as often as possible. I've seen people that, you would consider like micro influencers, push a message. You have to post 3 times a day. You have to post 5 times a day. So when I saw a ton of people doing that, I was like, no, I'm going to show people you can post twice a week. And as long as it's good, you could be successful. And there's actually people that have reached out and said, hey, thank you for that. Because for them, they felt all this pressure like they shouldn't even try. But the fact that I'm showing you could do it twice a week. Yeah, you got to put in a little more effort, but you could do it twice a week and be effective at it. I think it's starting to change the narrative a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. A lot of it is going to come down to like what you're sharing. And it sounds like for you're finding a lot of value in the research aspect of your content creation process. So I would say that's a really, really valuable piece of information, I think, for a lot of people watching who, I talk to a lot of people and they go, you have such a great social media presence because your story is so amazing. And it's true. I do have an amazing story, but it doesn't mean that you don't have an amazing story. It also means if you feel like your story isn't amazing, that you can't create like good content. Of course you can. It just probably requires a little bit more research about how you're going to be able to bring value to people. And could you kind of give us a couple examples of either how you execute that research or like some tools? Do you just go to Google and search ideas? How do you figure out what people are interested in?
So I noticed it pretty early on that most people subscribe to the idea of when you're doing research, you either go on LinkedIn or it's more industry related. So what are like the frequently asked questions within your industry? Those are great. But what I started to realize with video content is you can't just Google an article and find something brilliant. Like the way that we talk is not necessarily the way that we write. Right. So because I was creating video content, I realized it's got to sound like video content. So I went on YouTube. I started paying attention to what a lot of YouTubers were doing, like what was really popular on that platform. And that helps me stand out on LinkedIn because a lot of people aren't focusing with that mindset. So a lot of it is that. Stop looking only into LinkedIn. Stop looking at LinkedIn for LinkedIn ideas, because what you find is that those are the ideas that it's like sky is blue. Everybody's talking about, LinkedIn engagement. Everybody's talking about hashtags.
Here's 3 tips on how to grow your LinkedIn. It's like, yes, that's everywhere.
How to get more, how to get more engagement. I'm trying to find like the stuff that nobody's talking about, and that seems to be why it performs well, because there's a scarcity for that information specifically, and people are interested in it. So I focus my attention on that, and it seems to work. So when it comes to resources, if you're doing video content, you need to be on YouTube. Figure out what they're doing. Figure out what's working for them. but there's a lot you can still learn from YouTube, whether it's like picture post, like that's a thumbnail. So what are people using on YouTube as thumbnails? What are people using as headlines? That first line in your LinkedIn post, look at it as the title of somebody's video on YouTube. The thing about Google is that it has SEO. So with SEO, you can kind of like pay your way or manipulate your way to the top. Where YouTube, it's by views. You can filter by views. So you can see exactly what is really popular on YouTube. So I use YouTube more than anything else to kind of like as a resource when I'm going through my content creation process.
No, I think that's really, really smart. Basically, you're figuring out where is the attention in a measurable way that you can rely on that measurement. And then you're just kind of tapping into that attention where you see it's already at, instead of trying to get people to pay attention to you, to Jonathan, based on your terms. You're kind of bringing it to them. You're saying, hey, I know this is what you guys are interested in, and I created a video around it just for you to deliver you value. I
wanted to ask you about this. I wanted to ask you, because you're almost like a little bit of a Shay, where it seems
Thank you.
like
That is quite a compliment.
that you've built a brand around yourself, your story, where I still feel like I'm very much in a stage where my biggest value is in the information that I'm providing. So like I started recognizing this, like when we're talking about like actual influencers, people that are making a big difference, they have a brand built around themselves. People show up for you, whether you're talking about, tomatoes or marijuana or glass blowing or whatever it is, people show up for you. Where people seem to still be at a stage where they're showing up for me for the value that I bring, and not necessarily for me or my story. I know that because I don't talk about my story very often.
Well, you should.
Yeah. But what I want people to understand is that as they talk about their own unique journey, they look at people like you, they look at people like Shay, and they feel like, okay, if I share my truth, people are just going to gravitate towards it.
Right.
And something that I try to explain to people is, as they're building, because I'm very much still in that building stage, you have to bring value first. Like
Absolutely.
you have to be somebody that you have to build the trust first, because like for you, like
no, that's a great point. Let me hop in real quick. So when I hopped on LinkedIn, which was, I think it was like October, November of 2019, for the first 3 to 4 months, all I shared was information and analysis around TikTok. I actually really didn't share much of my story. I knew, hey, I figured something out on this platform that I'm pretty sure no one on this business LinkedIn platform really understands or gets it all. And I'm just going to start sharing value. And every single day, I just shared insights into what was happening on TikTok so that I could establish that trust, that credibility, and letting people know, hey, I'm someone who brings value. Because once people recognize you as someone who brings value, that's when you can start kind of slipping in your story, making those personal connections around your story, because people are now really curious. They're like, how did you get so good at this? How did you figure this out? Who are you? Right? And I think that's how I felt. That's exactly how I felt about you, Jonathan, as I was like, this guy's really good. He's bringing a lot of value. Who is he? I have to get him on my show. And I think that really is a very like tried and true method for, if you look at anyone who has a successful personal brand, it typically started around them first coming into their industry, to their platform, wherever it is that they were sharing information with a heavy hitting amount of value.
The way that I look at it as, you go to a restaurant and like there might be, or like you go to like a sandwich shop and there's like a little old man preparing your sandwich. Initially, you'll go for the sandwich, but in time, you'll build a relationship. Over time, you will build a relationship with that little old man, and then you'll start to recognize you're coming for him. So it's the same thing as us as influencers. You got to, don't copy what somebody is doing. Somebody at Z, don't copy what they're doing if you're at A. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to go through the process. I think a lot of people confuse it thinking, well, if I do what they're doing, it's going to work for me. No, the reason why, it's not that people don't like you. It's not that this person's doing something suspicious. It's the fact that this person brought value in the forefront, and then over time, they started sharing their story. So we all start in the same place. We all start with value. And then in time, we can evolve and start, like you said, sprinkling in our story. But it has to be done the right way at the right time, not in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, honestly, it's something for me that's still a struggle in terms of figuring out what that real perfect balance. I think I have a pretty good balance of, I would say, info or value-based info to story, but I want to share probably more story compared to like value-based information. And sometimes I do catch myself realizing you haven't really shared any insights around what you're doing in a business sense or in a content creation sense. You've really spent a whole week talking about you and your story. Now, in a sense, to deliver value, because I do think I've made a lot of mistakes, and I love sharing those mistakes I've made so other people can feel not alone, so other people can learn from them. I think there's a lot of value in storytelling. But there's a good balance to have from storytelling to the other types of value that exist. And it's, I think, a really good exercise if you're trying to figure out your content creation strategy. Think about all the different categories of value that you could create with your content. And that'll, I think, really help steer you. I love brainstorming and then kind of segmenting. That's a lot of my creative process, is like, think of all the ideas, pick out the best ones, compare them, figure out what's going on in your head. And for a lot of people, I think, who are struggling on social media right now, they're skipping kind of both of our steps, which is that first step of research or brainstorming or the work before the work. So could you talk a little bit more about kind of your work before the work? I know you talked about kind of your script writing and then your filming and your editing. Is there anything else that kind of goes into what it is that you're doing? Do you do a heavy amount of networking? I know that like these days LinkedIn is crazy with networking and one-on-one Zooms and the group Zooms. How much does that play into effect in your process?
There is, and I know that this has happened for you, there is such a snowball effect that inevitably takes place. I remember when I was starting out, I was like, if I can just get 30 people to accept my connection request, I'll be so happy. Like, I was struggling to get 30. And then I remember like the next one was like 500. And then like the time from 500 to 1,000 felt like forever. But then from 1,000 to 10,000 was kind of quicker. 10 to 20 was even faster. And 20 to 30 took like a month and a half. Wow. And that's what you find. Like the snowball starts rolling down the hill a little faster, you know? So, yeah, like that, like, I'll be honest, I don't do a lot of networking anymore. Like in terms, like, I don't subscribe to the networking posts anyways, you know, but, yeah, like now it's more like the content kind of drives everything else. So for the people out there that you're like, I only have 700 connections or whatever it may be. It's like, listen, after you get through like those 1,000, you're going to see how much faster it happens. It's just, people are like that. Followers are currency on LinkedIn, unfortunately. It's not something that I necessarily agree with, but the fact of the matter is that that's what people pay attention to, and it does get a little bit easier as you go. So, yeah, not a lot of networking, but I would say that, you know, I do spend a lot of time. What's super interesting, and Dr. Brian Harmon mentioned this on the show that we did in the morning, was the more people you help, it's like let's say that you help 5 people this week. Now you've added 5 friends. And then you do the same thing every week. They're going to tell their friends about it. And you know, in the course of a year,
growth. Absolutely. Yeah,
in the course of a year, now you have all of these people, this really dense network of individuals that, you know, endorse you and have nice things to say about you, doing shows like this. You know, all of those factors play into it. But we all start the same. That's the thing. Like, we all started at zero. The only thing, the recommendation I can make is make friends like yourself. You know, like, reach out to people like you, reach out to people like us and Shay, because the people that you do associate yourself with, especially on LinkedIn, man, it makes such a difference. It really does.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, you know, for anyone who is in that beginning phase and you are taking a lot of networking calls, one of the things that you can start to do is, just based off the current calls you're already taking, start evaluating 2 things. 1, how much value did that person bring to you within the call? And 2, how much value did you bring to them? So I would say a fair bit of networking calls, probably 2 to 4 maximum per day. There's some days where it gets a little crazy, but I really try and keep it like 2 to 4 per day. And I really focus on those 2 things, kind of people who can bring me an immense amount of value, or people who I can bring an immense amount of value. And I try and not stay in the in-between. And the reason for that is what you just talked about. If I can bring a huge amount of value to 2 people, I have no idea how many people those two people might talk
Right.
about me too. And that's a really powerful snowball effect.
Keep going.
It's a really powerful snowball effect because you simply cannot measure or be aware of word of mouth. Until people come back and tell you, hey, so and so was talking to you, or was talking to me about you, and then you realize, oh wow, I haven't talked to that person in 3-4 weeks, and they're still thinking about me, they're still talking about me, and then you realize that every conversation might have been that way, and you go, whoa, how many people know about me? How many people really are talking about me? And how many people am I impacting in this way where it's really going to benefit and come back to me? Because the world is completely reciprocal based. The more value you give out, the more value you deliver, the more you are going to get back. And it's a really... Absolutely. It's a really motivating thing once you experience even a little bit of it. So if you're in that real beginning phase and you're feeling stuck, I would say stop focusing on the value you can get from other people and really, really lean into how much value you can deliver to others. Even if you think those people could possibly never bring you any value, the value they are going to bring you at that point is talking to other people. And you have no idea who they're connected to, who they know, and what that might bring your way. So I think for me, that's been something that's blown my mind, specifically on LinkedIn. Now, it's true of every platform, but LinkedIn has a special power with that too. If you deliver value to people, it spreads, and it spreads to the right people, and all of a sudden you've got these just amazing human beings, these amazingly accomplished people reaching out going, hey, I heard great things about you. And you're like, you heard great things about me? That's insane. And it's like a little, you get to do your little dance and you're in your little dream world, and you get to have a great day because of that. And it inspires more and more belief in what you're doing. And I would say one of the big differences, I can see this is true for you. I think one of the big differences between people who are really successful on social media and in business in general is they believe harder and longer that it's real, that it's not all made up, it's not bullshit, that what people say about value, what people say about being able to change your life by having one amazing relationship or friendship, that's real. And we believe that with all of our hearts because we've experienced little tastes of it. Maybe we haven't gotten to the finale status yet, but honestly, that's part of why the journey is so great and wonderful. And I'd love for you to kind of answer this next question is, what is the most fun for you out of all these amazing things that are going on in your life? What brings you the most joy?
So I got a lot to unpack there, right? So number one, like I see the biggest problem, and this is something that like some of our clients, sometimes like my own dad, like limiting beliefs. People feel like if I can't give away all my secrets, like they're my secrets. That's what makes my company special or whatever. And it's like, listen, I'm telling you right now, if you just watch my content, you would be able to figure out LinkedIn. You could be in the same position that I'm in if you just follow the stuff that I said in my free content. This is not, the reality is that despite the fact that I give away all the free value, I'm not contextualizing it for you specifically.
Right.
So when people say, oh, well, you're giving away all your best stuff, not necessarily, because the benefit of working with one of us directly is the fact that we could contextualize it and customize it for you. So when people worry, like, I'm giving everything away, like, don't go into it with these limiting beliefs that like I can't give away this one thing or this secret that I have. The reality is that people are still going to want to work with you. People still may want to outsource. Maybe they understand and they get value out of what you do.
Right.
But like, how many times have you watched a YouTube video of like somebody fixing something and then you like recognize it's like, whoa, this is way too complicated. Like, while I would love to
every time,
yeah,
every time,
reaching out to like somebody, because it's like it can be overwhelming. And listen, you can spend 8 hours a day on LinkedIn and spend 12 hours making a video, or you could just reach out to us and we can help you do it yourself. So that's kind of like where the value comes in. I see a lot of people that focus too much on, giving stuff away. But the reality is there's a mindset behind it.
And there's an endless amount that when you have the skill, you can create. And the analogy I love too, because I can tell you like analogies. I love analogies too. It's like playing an instrument. When someone is really an expert at the guitar, yes, they can play any song you request, but they can also come up with endless new versions of music you've never heard of based on your taste. You could say, I like this song and this song. and they'll create a new song that's a mashup or a kind of a mix of those different flavors of sound. And that's kind of like what we can do is, yes, I can tell you, here's a great song. Here's another great song that'll work for you. But if you want that custom, new, never heard before sound, that's something you're really only going to get either by doing it yourself or working with someone who has that ability to execute on that.
Right. So, but to go back to your point, like, what's the funnest part of this whole process? It's like I kind of like said before, like growing up, I really didn't have friends. Like I was bullied a lot. And I remember, because like, I get the feeling like maybe you were a little bit shy too. Like
I was super shy. I had zero friends. I was never invited over to anyone's house a single time.
No,
absolutely. And I love what you're saying right now. Keep going because I completely resonate with it.
I remember, like, tell me if this was you too. Like, I remember I didn't want kids to notice that I was by myself during lunch. So I would walk around the halls or go to the library and like read a book.
Yes, I ate lunch both in the library and sometimes in urinal stalls. Not urinal stalls, in toilet stalls. I have eaten lunch in the bathroom because like you're only allowed to go so many places in the school. And we weren't allowed. I went to a school that was like you had to be in the lunchroom and then you got kicked outside. And outside sucked too because like everyone had their groups and you're just kind of like lonely by yourself. So sometimes I'd go to the bathroom and kind of hang out in there and eat my lunch in there. So absolutely.
Right. And it's just like, so what's been really cool about this experience is like for the first time in my life, because, once I left school, it became more like career oriented, but the ability to merge, some of those things that I didn't enjoy in school, which is like having friends and being able to take the business side and the networking side and combine it together. Like I'm having the most fun I've ever had in my entire life. It's like, it's a beautiful marriage of all these insecurities that I had as a child. And that is why I'm so enthusiastic and I'm as good as I am at what I do, because I literally wake up every morning feeling like this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. So once you can find your purpose, whatever it is, like the money, like all that stuff, it's a byproduct. But what really separates the good from the great is like how passionate and how much they enjoy this process. Like, to be honest, I sleep 4 or 5 hours. Like I have aged. I've aged so bad. Like in the last year, but I'm having so much fun doing it that it doesn't even matter. Like, it's such a blessing.
No, I can completely resonate with that. I would say, this is, and I try and talk a lot about this with people, is that I was not this happy until this year. Like this is the first year, 2020 is the first year I've ever been this happy and an amount of happy where I can say I'm like really, truly happy. And that's because even though my glassblowing business was very successful, even though I had all these really amazing experiences and adventures, I only had my husband to share them with. And certainly we actually went through a lot of rough periods and it was very lonely. You hear people talk about how business and entrepreneurship is lonely. It is when you're focused on only making money, which I was. I was focused on making money, paying my bills, growing my business. I was not focused on creating value-based friendships, mostly because I didn't know what value necessarily I had to give other people. And LinkedIn really allowed me to discover what type of value I could bring to the table with other people who are ambitious, with other people who are interested in the same things that I am. To be honest, running a glassblowing business, all of my customers were stoners because I sold, you guys might not know this, I sell glass art necklaces now, but up until this year, it was all, dab rigs, bongs, dabbers, carb caps, pipes, types of things. And while I resonated with that crowd because I also smoked a lot of weed, we had nothing else in common in terms of I was trying to build something. I was trying to do all these ambitious things. I was trying to bring value to other people. And everyone else was trying to just get stoned. And so there was this huge lack of feeling any ability to create friendships. And LinkedIn is this beautiful community where you can really find people who have very similar goals, very similar values and interests as you, and bring them value and form these like amazing lifelong and again, it's only been a year, but I know for a fact I've formed lifelong friendships with people who I never thought that I could possibly be friends with. Again, because I came from a background of just not being able to have friends really around anyone, I never imagined that I would have friends this amazing or this kind, this generous, this talented and smart. And so I think if you can really look at your past and say, that's not where I am anymore. I have these new opportunities, and lean into those opportunities. It can bring you just so much joy. And like you said, the money will follow once you're really in your passion zone. So thank you so much for sharing that. We'll wrap this up. We've been going on a long time, but I do have another question. What is next? Like, do you think a lot about the future, like whether that's a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or are you super focused on the now? Tell us a little bit about what's going on in your brain.
So yeah, a lot of people batch their content, and I don't blame them. A lot of people say on Sunday, I'm going to record all my videos for the week or all my videos for the month, or, with their written content, picture posts, whatever it is, they'll schedule it out. So some people 1, 2, 3 months ahead of time, where for me, and I almost like equate that to people that like do meal preps. Like they'll cook all their food on Sunday and then like put it in Tupperware for the rest of the week.
Absolutely.
I cook all my food fresh, and I create all my content fresh, and it's not necessarily that I have the luxury of time. I don't. But it's the fact that I like things to be as fresh as possible. It's top of mind. It's what's happening right now. So to answer your question, that's the way I'm living as well. I'm living right now, this moment, focusing on making it the best that it can possibly be, because the reality is we don't know what these social media platforms, tomorrow LinkedIn can be gone. Right. What are we going to do? So my goal is like, let's make today the best it can be. Keep, look forward to the future. Look forward to the opportunities, but I think that one of my strengths is my ability to just focus on, like some people could have the mindset, like, when I'm creating a video, it's like, oh, well, how are you going to develop ideas for 3 days from now if you put everything into this one? I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out when I get there. Yeah. So that's kind of how I'm living, and I feel like it works. But yeah.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's such a great point. Because I like to talk about focus a lot. So if you're focused on all of us only ever have so much focus. I like to think about it in a video game. You know how your character has different bars for health, different bars for stamina. So we literally, like, video games are so real life, you guys, for real. So we literally have a health bar every day, right? We literally have an energy bar. We have a focus bar. And if your focus bar is being tapped into on future projects, you only have so much left to focus on creating right now. And I would say I'm a great contrast to you, where I actually do have quite a bit probably now of my focus energy in future places. And that's part of why I probably couldn't spend as much time and energy and focused effort as you're doing. Not to say it's impossible, but I wouldn't do as good a job at it, and I wouldn't enjoy it as much as you're enjoying it, because I'd be pulled in other directions just a little bit. It's just a little bit. And so I want you guys to understand that is really not just a tactic, but it's a bit of a superpower, because focus is definitely something that's a skill. Like, controlling your focus is absolutely a skill. It's a skill you can develop through various exercises centered around focus. But if you can get to the skill level that Jonathan is at, which I would call expert level, in terms of being able to focus for long periods of time on something right now without thinking about the future, that is hugely advantageous, and you will create better material. You will create better value if you're able to do that. And so I think that's really important for anyone watching this to be aware of in their own situation. You have to be aware, do I even have the ability to do what Jonathan's doing if I had the time? Or would my mind be pulled into what I have going on next week, into making that payment at the end of the year for my taxes, into whatever directions that our attentions, end up going? It's really important to have a good idea and self-awareness on where your attention is at, because you can't use more attention than you have. You can't focus. What's that?
And to add to that, like, if you're a business owner, if you're a boss, if you have employees, like one of the reasons why I can get it, like, if you want to call it, one of the reasons why I can get away with that is because the company I work for allows me to focus on my strengths and put my time where it's best used, which is on developing content and building relationships and some things like that. I have a company around me that helps me accomplish these things, where somebody else, if you work in a company, you're the boss, Empower your employees, put them where they're going to be the most effective. I encourage you to do that. I've worked for a lot of companies where, sometimes it's like you're a square peg in a round hole and you're trying to make things fit and it's not working. So I also encourage you, if you're a business owner, empower your employees, put them in the places where they can perform the best. When they saw that content was my thing and I needed time to do it, they were flexible with it, and I'm more successful for it. So I think that, it's an important factor as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, just to add to that, that when you put your employees in the areas where they both have the most passion and are the most effective, that their skill increases much more quickly, to the point where maybe, when you started out, it took you twice as long to create content that was half as good. And now you're at least a little bit faster. Even let's say it's 10% faster, maybe it's not double, but you're 10% faster and 200% better. And that continues to happen over time when you allow someone to exist in their area of expertise where it meets their passion. Now, to caution, sometimes your employees won't know what they're good at. So it's important that you kind of are gauging them objectively based on either metrics or, again, kind of their energy output. If someone says they want to do something, but then they don't work extra hard on it, like they probably didn't want to do it. They probably liked the idea of doing it, but the actual execution was just not as enjoyable as they thought it would be. So it is a very difficult position. I can see that Shay is doing an amazing job, kind of running her company and helping all the employees be as successful as they possibly can, which is clearly bringing a huge level of happiness. One last question. What's something that you've gotten or you've been able to take away from working with Shay? Like, I'm sure there's a lot of things, but if you had to pick one thing to share, what have you either learned or gotten value out of through this experience so far?
Why don't I get her so I can say it
awesome.
to everybody?
Yes. Absolutely. Lee, I appreciate you so much with the comment. LinkedIn is like going to a trade event, eavesdrop on 100 conversations and choose which ones to join. So much more efficient. That's a great point. Lee, I have been going to trade shows, not this year, unfortunately, but for the past 10 years. And I always kind of talk about how valuable that experience is, because you do have just a huge number of exposures to conversations, to people. You get to learn so much through those numerous interactions, and you get to decide which conversations to jump in on. And if you jump into a conversation and it doesn't work out the way you want, you can leave and jump into another conversation. Oh, I hear her. Hey,
hello.
How are you doing?
Oh my God, I'm hot. These lights, it's hot in here.
Yes, I get a little sweaty sometimes, for sure. Well, thank you so much for jumping on. I just asked Jonathan a question. I kind of asked him if he had to pick one thing, because I'm sure there's a million things. If he had to pick one thing that he's really gotten out of the experience of working with you, what that would be?
Like, I've worked for a lot of bad bosses, and the fact that she believed in me from the very beginning.
But I'm the baddest bad boss.
Bad. Yep.
You know what I'm saying.
She believed in me from the beginning, and she gave me the keys to succeed. Like, a lot of bosses won't necessarily trust their employees. They have a challenge delegating, where she just allowed me to do my best and empowered me, which is very rare. It is very rare in any industry. So I'm very grateful.
So then let me ask you, Shay, how did you do that? How do you think that you empowered him? And did you always have this level of trust that you gave to people, or was that something you had to build up as a boss over time?
Yeah, great question. I definitely did not always have it. I used to be like very reactive in the office. I was just struggling with a lot of things personally, mentally. So I wasn't able to like self-regulate my own emotions. So like any little thing that would pop up, even if it was a minor, very minute problem, I would react like it was like a big problem. And I could be at times a very controlling boss. But I did a lot of work on myself before I started this next company. I did a lot of healing, and thank you. Yeah. So I got past
that. Is the answer. I love that so much.
Yeah. And I just realized it's like, sometimes you have to surrender to the universe. Sometimes, don't be foolish, but like trust people. And I also approached LinkedIn coaching in a way of how I would have liked to be coached. I've always wanted to be a performer. I've had a knack for being on camera, but I came from an upbringing where I didn't have any support and was mainly actually just like discouraged and made fun of for it. So I treated Jonathan like who was the mentor and the friend I needed getting into this that I didn't have, because I had to figure a lot of it out myself, right? And that's why the boot camp is so powerful, because I'm able to take all of the things that I wanted, that I hoped someone could have taught me about LinkedIn and speaking and video, and package it together into this neat consumable program for business owners so that they can have a jump start on the platform. And now it's working. Like, he's growing at a rate way quicker than I did when I was his size. And it's because of,
isn't that the best feeling ever, to know that you catalyzed that? Like, I can completely resonate with this, because I think for me, so with my glass blowing business, we went through probably 8 to 10 employees that all ended up getting fired. None of them were very productive. And I have to say, no matter whatever flaws they had, that is all on me for not being a good boss. And it certainly had a lot to do with, again, my own internal problems, my frustrations. I would say a lot to do with frustrations and those coming out in ways that I wasn't even aware of. I thought I was being a great boss, but like the tone of my voice was not okay. I didn't make them feel the way I thought I was making them feel. And now I have a virtual assistant who I consider my employee, even though technical tax terms, whatever. And she has just completely flourished from someone who was really shy, not confident, to like taking ownership over the things she does. Like, and she brings me so much more value because she's got ideas that she wants to share and she feels comfortable sharing with me. And she's, taking extra initiative and going out on her own, like doing things completely off of paid time to contribute to my company, to our company, which is just such an amazing feeling to see her doing that and love it, doing it because she likes it, not because I asked her to or she feels pressured to, but because she wants to contribute in a way that I hopefully have inspired her to want to contribute. And again, I think the number one thing that I can pound through to people's head is that comes from personal growth and working on yourself. And it's something I'd love to ask you, like, do you still spend time kind of like working on yourself actively? What does that look like for you? Do you feel like you've made it? Like,
no, it's like, one of my friends put it this way the other day. She says, you're never healed. Like, there's always more to go. There's always more things to shed. So I've just sort of, it's kind of like they say, like, everyone wants to lose weight, right? And everyone wants to lose weight. So they get into these fad diets where they're like, I'm just going to go on a diet to lose 50 pounds. Then I'll be back to normal, back to normal. It's like, who actually keeps the weight off? People who don't treat it like a diet, but they treat it like a lifestyle, and it really becomes permanent. It's the same with healing. Like, you can't just, I meditated one day, okay, I'm done. Like, it's like, no, you like adopt that as your lifestyle. So you're constantly working on yourself. So I'm not perfect. I certainly still have dark days or insecurities and whatever, but I would say overall, I've just built a tool belt of healing modalities so that when I do get down, it's like, okay, Shay, you know what to do. You know how to self-regulate at this point. And I just go into the archives.
Absolutely. So just hammering it home again, you guys, it's about habits. And, it takes a long time to build habits. And all the tool belt that you need is not going to come. You don't get to just put on the entire tool belt with the tools all in it. You probably put on the tool belt first, and then it's one tool at a time. And sometimes the tool falls out, and you're like, man, I didn't, exercise is something that regulates me and makes me happy. And, these past 3 days, this past week, I've been bad about my exercise, but you pick up that tool and you put it back in your belt and you just get back on track, and you try and always make that effort towards taking care of yourself and regulating yourself. Now, I want to be very respectful of your time. I know you're super busy. I really appreciate you hopping on here along with Jonathan. If there's both of you guys want to leave people with one last thing, what would that be?
Join the boot camp.
Love it.
You know what? Like, not even like cheesy sales call. Like, this is legitimate. It
is a cheesy sales call, but it's a good one. It's warranted and it's validated. It is.
So how would they sign up for the boot camp, or like just reach out to you, or is there a website?
Yeah, you can reach out to me. It's me@shayrowbottom.com. You can email me directly. You can email John, Jon, @shayrowbottom.com. We'll hook you up with the info you need to get started. You can also visit my website, shayrowbottom.com, to find more info. And, this is really, if you've been following myself or Jonathan on LinkedIn and wondering, how do they have a business? How are they making money? Like, how are they doing this? Like, that's really what the boot camp is. It's, hey, we're the case study. We're the testimonial that this works. You don't need to spend a bunch of money on ads or do direct outbound campaigns. You can literally have the leads come to you. What's the easiest way to sell someone? They come to you. You know, they're coming to you first. So this is the magic of the boot camp. This is what we teach. And it's a do-it-yourself program, you know, so it's a one-time investment of $5,000, but then you have that skill set, you have that tool belt with you moving forward that you can apply
the rest of your life,
all of your company
you guys.
on social media. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So real quick, just more about the boot camp. Who would you say ideally it's for?
Anyone who owns a business and is on LinkedIn. It really is not industry specific. You know, it's ideal for anyone who's in B2B with a high ticket offer. But we have had people in B2C. We have had new entrepreneurs. We've even had employees. It's not always business owners. Sometimes employees want to spend their own money to invest in, like, hey, I want to learn how to grow my own following and build my own brand so I can quit my job, you know, and that's work. We've had several people do that already. But a lot of, you know, recruiters, sales consultants, finance people, lawyers, other marketers, SEO, what else? Just anything. Yeah, it's really not industry specific, which is also really fun because you get to get really creative with all the different content ideas. And when you join the boot camp, you're not just signing up to do a program by yourself. You're literally signing up to join a community of people who've all done this, who support one another, who hold one another accountable, who've already gone through it. So the bigger the community gets, like, the more valuable, because now we just have all these different resources, all these different creators from all these different industries coming to share their insights and what they've learned around creating content on LinkedIn.
I love that. It's kind of like, oh, yes.
I can mention this. Like, the most beautiful part that I've been able to witness myself is, you know, literally people in tears, people in laughter, realizing that, like, watching people break out of their shell.
Oh, yeah.
20, 30 years of, like, repressed, I want to be this or I want to be that. I need we give you the platform and the confidence to speak that truth that you've been holding inside of you. And it's so touching watching.
Sounds like therapy almost, like amazing therapy.
It is like therapy. It's literally a personal development program. I mean, yeah, it's marketing and it's the principles and the strategies and, you know, all of the techniques that you need to know to get attention online. But at the end of the day, John's right. Like, this program makes people come alive. I've literally had the wives of clients come to me and say, thank you so much. My husband is so much more confident now and stride. I'm like, oh my God. Like, so it really is spiritual for people. It's, there's a lot of people out there who are just afraid to take the stage, you know, afraid of their own voice. They say public speaking is one of the number one fears of humans. Like, when you can get past that and actually start to embody the belief of, like, I do have a voice and I am valuable, it's definitely not just your business that begins to thrive.
Yeah, absolutely.
The first question you asked me is, who am I?
Yes.
And I am only who I am because of this program and because of Shay.
Wow.
That's
amazing.
I would have lived and died a forensic accountant.
Yeah, he said that. Yeah, he said he would have died in a cubicle before he met me.
You unlocked greatness right here. And I mean, that's really exciting. How many people, if you don't mind sharing, have been through your program so far?
Hundreds. Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow, that is so cool for you that you've been able to make, like, such a profound impact on not just those hundreds of people, but like you said, their entire families. Like, literally, and this is the way I think about it too with what I do, is literally every single person that person who went through the camp talks to for the rest of their life is happier, is brought more value, because it comes out just in communication. It comes out in every little detail of their life and of their being, that they're able to bring more value and happiness, especially the happiness part, to other people. Because when you're not happy with yourself, it is so hard to bring and share happiness to other people. No matter how much you think you're doing it, you're probably not. And so I have to commend you for the work that you do. I'm sure you could be doing really anything you wanted with your life at this point, and the fact that you take the time to impact other people in this profound way, I'm really grateful for that. So thank you guys both so much. I hope you guys reach out to Shay, reach out to Jonathan, check out their boot camp. Please sign up. Again, changing your life. What's the value? What's the cost of that? I think it's priceless. So Thank you guys again so much. I hope to see you guys, everyone watching, another episode. And make sure to share the link. Make sure to share the link on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, wherever it is that you like to share and live on other platforms. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.